On my birthday, he publicly announced his relationship with his one and only light in his. He decisively let go of 6 years of feelings and packed his bags to leave. When he came back, there was no sign of me, and I went crazy. I stared at the cream cake on the table. The candle flame had burned down to the base, and the wax dripped along the white porcelain plate into a winding creek. The wall clock struck 9 times, and Jiangshu hadn't returned yet. Today is my 25th birthday and also the 6th year. We've been together. Before I left this morning, he rubbed my hair and said there would be a surprise tonight. I thought it would be the diamond ring I tried on 3 times at the jewelry store, but he kept saying, wait a little longer. I even changed into the off-white dress he gave me last year. The pearl buttons at the collar polished until they shone, just like the hopeful thing I've been carefully holding in my heart for 6 years. My phone vibrated on the coffee table, a birthday wish from my best friend. I smiled as I replied, but my fingers unconsciously slid downward. In the circle of updates, Jiangshu's name suddenly popped up. He rarely posts on Moments. His last post was 3 years ago, when we went to the beach, and I took a side profile photo of him when he wasn't looking, but this time, in the photo, he stands in a popular Western restaurant in the city center. Opposite sits Yanxi, the woman in the red slip dress, her hand resting on Jiangshu's wrist, smiling with eyes crinkled. Jiangshu makes a V with his hand, his fingertips touching Yanxi's hair, and the caption has only 4 characters. The rest of my life. The post was uploaded 10 minutes ago. I thought I misread, refreshing the page again and again, until that red spot in my sight blurred into a diffuse light. 6 years ago, Jiangshu refused Yanxi at this Western restaurant. He said, I like someone else, then turned and ran to find me, his forehead still speckled with rain. Back then I felt I was the luckiest person in the world. But now he proclaims his life with someone else in the same place. The last candle on the cake went out, and the room was left only with the hum of the refrigerator. I stood up to fetch water from the kitchen. The glass met the countertop with a crisp sound, yet my hands trembled uncontrollably. I remembered last week when I was tidying the closet and found a box he'd hidden at the bottom. Inside was a scarf Yanxi gave him in college and an old yellowed photo he said at the time, I've forgotten about this. I believed him. It turns out he hadn't forgotten at all. I had never been placed in his heart. I walked into the bedroom and opened the leftmost cabinet of the closet, my designated area, just half of it. I started stuffing clothes into my suitcase piece by piece, moving as slowly as if I were dismantling moments of time. Over the past 6 years, the trench coat he bought me with his first paycheck, I wore it for 4 years and couldn't bear to part with it, and the couple's t-shirts from our first trip together, his long gone, mine still buried at the bottom of a drawer. As the suitcase gradually filled up, I crouched down and looked under the bed. Those high heels he gave me for my birthday last year, brand new, only worn for 2 steps when I tried them on. Back then he said, our nuo looks good in everything. Now, thinking back, it was just a casual brush off. My phone rang again. It was Jiangshu. I stared at the name Aishu flashing on the screen until it stopped ringing on its own. Then I put my phone on silent and continued packing. The streetlights outside had come on, their glow seeping through the gap in the curtains, casting long shadows across the floor. I took one last look at the apartment we'd lived in for 3 years. On the wall still hung a wedding photo, actually a group picture from last year's company team building trip, which I secretly had printed and enlarged. Jiangshu didn't say anything when he saw it, nor did he stop me from hanging it up. Looking back, that was probably the most perfunctory of all his acts of tolerance toward me. I zipped up the suitcase. The sound was jarringly loud in the silent room. Walking to the entrance, I placed the apartment key on the shoe cabinet, next to the leather shoes he had taken off yesterday. I never got around to polishing them, that's it. 6 years, enough. I crouched in front of the storage box in the living room. The moment I touched the pair of off-white couples mugs, I flinched back as if burned. On the cups were small printed characters, Shu and Nuo, made together 6 years ago at a pottery shop near our university. Jiangshu was clumsy with his hands. He ruined 3 molds before getting one right, and in the end I had to fix the chip on the rim for him. Back then he held me and laughed, saying, from now on, all our cups at home should have our names on them. But now I was the only one left to pack this cup. I gently placed it into a cardboard box, planning to leave it for the landlord to handle, not because I didn't care, but because I didn't dare take it. What if one day I saw that chipped rim and remembered his fingertips stained with clay? I was afraid my heart, which I had finally hardened, would turn soft again, like mud. At the very bottom of the bookshelf a stack of tickets was pressed down, tickets from the slow green trains taken during college commutes between two cities and later high-speed rail and plane tickets from trips taken together. I pulled them out one by one, my fingertips brushing over the fading dates until I stopped at the plane ticket to Qingdao. It was my 20th birthday. Jiang Shu had secretly booked the tickets, saying he would take me to see the ocean. We stayed on the beach until early morning, and he draped his jacket over me, promising that once he graduated and started earning money, he would take me to even farther places. Now, I suppose he'll be taking Yanxi to those faraway places instead. I crumpled the ticket into a ball and tossed it into the trash can, my movements as light as if I were discarding something trivial, yet my fingernails had turned white from the pressure. Every promise made over those 6 years, like these tickets, had once been carefully treasured by me, but now they were just thorns piercing my heart. Inside the bedside drawer in the bedroom was the surprise I had secretly prepared last week, a grey cashmere scarf that I had spent an entire month knitting. I had planned to give it to him tonight. The stitches weren't perfectly even, especially near the end, which I had unraveled and reknitted 3 times. Now, thinking back, it was fortunate I never got the chance to give it to him, otherwise, it would have seemed like a pathetic gesture on my part. I took the scarf out of the box and draped it over the back of a chair. Maybe the cleaning staff would take it away tomorrow, or maybe Jiang Shu would see it, but none of that mattered to me anymore. When I was tidying up the balcony, I noticed the shirt hanging on the clothesline was the one Jiang Shu had worn yesterday. I had washed it and left it there. Not yet put away. There was a small coffee stain near the cuff, from when he accidentally spilled some during a meeting last week. I had used half a bottle of stain remover to clean it. I used to believe that these trivial, everyday tasks were what made up a life together. Only now do I realize that the life I thought we had was just a one-woman show I was performing alone. I took the shirt down, folded it neatly, and placed it on the sofa with a few of his other clothes. My suitcase was already full. I only packed my own clothes, my identification documents, and the diary I had kept for 6 years, not because I wanted to keep the memories, but so that I could burn it later, once I had truly let go. As a final farewell to those 6 years, I did one last check of the apartment. The kitchen sink was scrubbed clean, the trash had been taken out, and the leftover milk and fruit in the fridge were packed into a container with a sticky note attached that read, "Eat soon, don't let it spoil," as I wrote the words. Don't let it spoil. I suddenly laughed. Here I was about to leave and still worrying about such things. How foolish. I tore off the sticky note, crumpled it, and threw it into the trash can. Then I turned, picked up my suitcase and caught my reflection in the mirror by the entryway. The collar of the cream-colored dress was still crisp and the pearl buttons gleamed almost blindingly. Only the light in my eyes had faded. The lock clicked with a clatter and I paused for a moment, not because Jiang Shu had returned, but because my hand had accidentally brushed against the doorknob. I took a deep breath, pulled the door open, and the motion sensor light in the hallway flickered on, casting a warm yellow glow over the wheels of my suitcase. I didn't look back as I descended the stairs. I heard a door open somewhere above me. I didn't slow my pace, in fact, I quickened it. It wasn't until I stepped out of the building and a cold wind rushed into my collar that I shivered. Winter had already arrived. A taxi by the roadside saw me with my suitcase and slowly pulled up. The driver asked where I was heading, and I gave him the address of the train station, my voice so calm that even I was surprised. Outside the window, streetlights receded one by one, like the days of my 6 years, flickering on and off, until they all became blurred specks of light as the taxi drove away from the entrance of the apartment complex. I instinctively glanced up at the window on the 3rd floor that had once been my home. Now it was pitch black, without a single glimmer of light. Is probably still celebrating their official announcement night with Yanxi, perhaps in the restaurant slicing a delicate cake, or perhaps holding her hand and walking, saying love words he used to only say to me. I retract my gaze, tighten the suitcase handle hard, the metal coolness through my palm making my muddled brain a bit more awake. My phone vibrates non-stop in my pocket. I pull it out and see a WeChat from Jiang Shu. Baby, just finished, will come back soon to make up your birthday, wait for me, followed by a kiss emoji. I stare at the line of words, suddenly feeling it absurd and ridiculous. Finished? Is it finished announcing the engagement with Bai Yueguang? or finish delaying me for 6 years of feelings. I don't respond, not even opening the chat window, directly putting the phone back in my pocket, turning to look out the window. The car passed by the night market street we often went to on every Friday night back then. Jiang Shu would pull me here for grilled skewers. He always said the pork belly here smelled the best, the fat crisped and charred, then wrapped in lettuce and fed into my mouth, watching me grin through the heat. The wind carried the smell of fireworks, and a faint scent of laundry detergent on him. I thought such days would last forever, until we married and had children and grew old slowly. But now this street is still bright with lights. The scent of grilled skewers seems to drift in even through the car window. Only the seat beside me will never have him again. 20 minutes later, the taxi stops at the square of the train station. I pay, lift the suitcase and walk into the waiting hall. The early hours hall is not crowded, mostly travelers with luggage, faces tired yet full of expectation. I find a windowside spot to sit, place the suitcase at my feet and finally take out my phone. In WeChat, besides Jiang Shu's message, there are a few voice messages from my best friend. Anxious. No, did you see Jiang Shu's moments? What's going on here? Are you kidding me? Where are you now? Should I come over to find you? I reply to my best friend, I'm fine, just want to go out for a walk. Don't worry about me, I'll contact you once I settle down. After sending, I set my best friend to do not disturb. Not that I don't want to contact, but I'm afraid I'll cry and be swayed. Then I open Jiang Shu's WeChat chat window, scrolling through our conversation. The latest message is from last night when he asked, what gift do you want for tomorrow's birthday? I replied then, just you being with me. Looking back now, that sentence is like a loud slap, slamming hard against my face. I didn't delete the chat window, I only changed his nickname from Oshu to Jiang Shu, then blocked his WeChat and phone number. After finishing all this, I let out a long relieved sigh, as if I had unburdened myself of a heavy load. There is half an hour before boarding check, so I stood up and went to the convenience store to buy a bottle of mineral water. On the way back, I saw a young couple snuggling together, looking at their phones, the girl leaning on the boy's shoulder, smiling with her eyes crinkling, the boy lowering his head to place a kiss on her forehead, a natural and intimate gesture. That scene looked exactly like us 6 years ago. On the day of college graduation, we were at the train station as well. Jiang Shu was going to an internship overseas, and I sent him off. He held me and said, when I come back I will marry you. I cried and nodded, telling him to take good care of himself. The promises back then were so sincere, the eyes so firm. I never imagined that, 6 years later, we would end in this way. The ticket gate began to check tickets. I picked up my suitcase and moved with the crowd forward. My ID card rested in my palm, a little warm. The ID card was something I went to get together with Jiang Shu. The photo on it showed me smiling broadly, eyes full of longing for the future. The moment I stepped onto the train, I looked back at the direction of the waiting hall and softly whispered, goodbye, Jiang Shu, goodbye, my 6 years. The train slowly started, the city outside gradually receding, familiar buildings, streets and lights turning into blurred shadows. I leaned against the window, closed my eyes, and the tears finally couldn't be restrained, landing on the back of my hand, icy and piercing. But I did not cry out loud, I let the tears flow silently. After crying, I told myself, from today on, in the life of the promises, there is no Jiang Shu anymore. I parked the car downstairs in the community, with a freshly bought strawberry cake in hand, the flavor that Shu Nuo loves the most. It was something I brought along casually when I was with Yang Shi this afternoon. In fact, the public announcement was a little impulsive. After Yang Shi returned to the country, she harassed me for half a month, and today she brought up the past regrets again. I was blinded by the alcohol and posted that moment on Moments. Now that I've cooled down, I'm a little worried that Shu Nuo will overthink when she sees it. After all, we've been together for 6 years, and her thoughts have always been delicate. The elevator rose to the 3rd floor, and I took out my keys to open the door. The hallway motion sensor light didn't turn on. At this time, usually Shu Nuo would leave a hallway light on for me. I frowned, pressed the switch, and the warm yellow light spread out, but the living room was empty and devoid of any warmth. Nuo, I called out, but no one answered. The cake was on the shoe cabinet. I changed shoes and walked inside. There was no grey blanket she usually covered herself with on the sofa, and there was no lemon water she would brew on the coffee table either, only an empty fruit plate. This morning when I left, she even said she would wash some strawberries and wait for my return. Shunuo, I raised my voice, went to the bedroom door which was ajar. I pushed the door open and my heart sank. The wardrobe doors were wide open and the left side, which used to be hers, was mostly empty. Only a few old t-shirts she didn't like wearing remained. Her photo frame on the nightstand was gone, leaving only the single photo of me standing there alone. The skincare and cosmetics on the dresser were gone. Only a bare white surface remained. Not even the hairband she used often was left. I quickened my steps to the walk-in closet. The wardrobe we assembled together now only has my side of clothes neatly hung, her area so clean as if no one had ever used it. I reached out and touched the inner wall of the wardrobe, still scented with her usual lavender fragrance, but there was no trace of her presence in that scent anymore. Impossible, I muttered, turning and rushing into the bathroom. Her toothbrush, towel, and facial cleanser were all gone. Even the male mouthwash she specially bought for me had been taken away. The whole house was terrifyingly quiet except for my breathing. There was no other sound. I suddenly remembered something and hurried to the hall. There on the shoe cabinet lay a string of keys, the keys to our home door, the ones she had always hung on the pink keychain. Now the keychain was gone, only the bare keys remained. She's gone. That thought hit me like a cold splash, waking me completely. I took out my phone and opened WeChat, wanting to message her to explain, but in the chat window, beside the message I sent this afternoon, "Baby, I've just finished, I'll be back soon to make up your birthday, wait for me," there was only a red exclamation mark. She had blocked me. I tried dialing his number again, and a robotic female voice came from the receiver. "The number you have dialed is currently in a call. Please try again later." Again and again, all with the same prompt. I know this isn't a call in progress. It's as if he has also blocked my number. I rushed out of the bedroom and searched the entire house frantically, under the sofa, between the bookshelves, inside the kitchen cabinets, and even opened the fridge. Inside there was no yogurt, his favorite, no braised pork he had saved for me, only a few boxes of vegetables I didn't like packed in, as if they had long been set aside to be thrown out. "Shunuo, come out," I shouted at the empty room, my voice echoing off the walls, sounding especially hollow. I walked to the living room wall. Our wedding photo was gone, leaving only a faint outline on the wall, like an ugly scar. That was a group photo taken during last year's company team building trip, which he secretly had enlarged. When he came back, his eyes sparkling, he said, "Jiang Shu, when we get real wedding photos, they have to be even better than this." I had been busy looking at documents and just muttered an absent Now I realized the look in his eyes back then was full of hope and tender caution. I suddenly panicked, fumbled for my phone and called my best friend. "Hey, do you know where Shunuo is?" I tried to keep my voice calm, but the trembling in my fingers gave me away. "Jiang Shu," my best friend's tone dripped with sarcasm. "You have the nerve to ask, what did you post on your moments? Shunuo was such a great girl, and you treated her like this. Now you remember to look for him." "I didn't mean to. Yenshi and I were just what? Just a momentary whim, and you announced it to the world, treating Shunuo's 6 years like a joke." My best friend cut me off. "I don't know where he is, and I won't tell you, Jiang Shu. You'd better pray you never find him, because sooner or later you'll have to pay back everything you owe him." The call ended and the receiver buzzed with a dial tone. I called several of Shunuo's usual friends, but either no one answered or they flatly said they didn't know. I collapsed onto the sofa, staring at the empty room, overwhelmed by a panic I had never felt before. I had expected Shunuo to make a scene, to cry, to confront me, like every other time I had been in touch with Yenshi, but he didn't. He said nothing, just quietly packed up all his things, left the keys, and vanished completely from my life, as if he had never been there. Yet every little detail of those 6 years was still etched into every corner of the house. The oil-proof stickers he put by the kitchen sink, the anti-slip clips he bought for the clothesline on the balcony, the height chart we stuck together on the bedroom wall, from when he came up to my chest to now almost level with me. I suddenly realized I hadn't lost just a girlfriend, but the person who had accompanied me from youth to maturity, who kept my life in order, who gave me all his tenderness. The cake was still on the shoe cabinet, the sweet scent of strawberries filling the air, but it felt unbearably bitter. I sprang up from the sofa, one thought racing through my mind: find any trace he left behind. I charged into the bedroom and yanked open all the bedside drawers. Inside were only my watch, a lighter, And a few crumpled meeting minutes. There used to be Shunuo's notepad here. He would jot down things to do, occasionally writing things like Jiang Shu, remember to eat breakfast, or don't forget to bring in the clothes from the balcony, in his elegant, slightly playful handwriting. Now the notepad was gone, not even a scrap of paper left. I searched the bookshelf from top to bottom, pulling out each book. Shunuo used to say my shelves were too boring with only workbooks, so he bought a few romance novels to tuck among them, writing his thoughts on the title pages. I had thought it childish and never opened them, but now I carefully flipped through each one, hoping to feel his handwriting, yet those romance novels were also gone, leaving only cold, professional books gleaming under the light. There must be something else I haven't found, I muttered to myself, crouching down to look under the bed. In the past, Shunuo used to stuff things he didn't use often into a box under the bed: his college awards, ticket stubs from our first movie date, and a scarf he had knitted halfway last winter. He said he wanted to knit me a scarf, but because I was always working overtime, he kept stopping and starting and never finished it. I reached out, pulled the box toward me, and opened it. It was empty. Even the ticket stub he had folded into a heart shape was gone. I walked to the living room, my eyes landing on the trash bin It had been empty when I left this morning, but now there was a crumpled piece of paper inside. I grabbed it like a lifeline and unfolded it. It was a crumpled airline ticket to Qingdao, dated the day of Shunuo's 20th birthday. I remembered secretly booking that flight to take him to see the ocean, and how he jumped and shouted on the beach, "Jiang Shu, you're the best," his eyes sparkling like stars. So he had kept that ticket all along, only to crumple it and throw it in the trash before leaving. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by a hand, the pain stealing my breath. I pulled out my phone and suddenly remembered there was a backup phone in the drawer, an old one with no SIM card. Shunuo had charged it for me once, saying it could come in handy if my main phone died. I stumbled to the entryway cabinet, opened the drawer, found the phone, quickly inserted my SIM card, and dialed Shunuo's number. 3 rings echoed through the earpiece, my heart rising to my throat with each one. But the next second, that robotic female voice returned. "The number you have dialed is currently on another call. Please try again later." He had even blocked unknown numbers. I didn't give up and called 3 more times in a row, each time getting the same result. On the last try, the call was rejected outright. Without even the automated message, I hurled the backup phone onto the sofa, and a crack split across the screen like my shattered heart. Then I thought of Shunuo's mother. With trembling hands, I found the contact labeled Auntie, took a deep breath and dialed. The phone rang for a long time before she picked up, her voice gentle but distant. "Jiang Shu, Auntie, do you know where Nuo is? He left, and I can't find him." I tried to make my voice sound pitiful, but as soon as I spoke, an uncontrollable sob escaped. Auntie's voice turned cold. "Don't you know why he left?" I was on the phone with Nuo just yesterday. He said you promised to spend his birthday with him and told me not to worry. And look what happened. Jiang Shu, our Nuo has been with you for 6 years, not to be mistreated like this. I was wrong, Auntie. I really was. Please tell me where he is. I'll go find him. I'll apologize to him. Auntie let out a cold laugh. 6 years of feelings, and a simple apology is enough. Nuo didn't tell me where he was going, and even if he had, I wouldn't tell you. Jiang Shu, don't contact our family's Nono again in the future. You don't deserve him. The call was disconnected, and the busy signal in the earpiece stabbed my ears like needles. I slumped to the ground, back against the sofa, gazing at the empty room, feeling helpless for the first time. I remembered last week when she promised to tell me that her colleague's mother had come bearing many hometown specialties and asked if I wanted to try them, and said next time Auntie would bring me some as well. I was busy looking at computer files at the time and casually said, "No need, I'm busy lately." Now I think about it, how did I miss the look of disappointment in her eyes then? Not long ago she had trouble sleeping at night, leaning in my arms and saying, "Jiang Shu, when will we have a real home?" I rubbed her hair and replied, "After I finish this project, we'll think about it. But once this project is over, there will be another one." I always thought there was more time, yet I forgot that she has already been waiting for me for 6 years. Tears suddenly fell, splashing onto the floor and spreading a small stain of water. I have never cried in front of Shunuo before. Every time she cried because she was treated unfairly, I would clumsily wipe away her tears and say, "Don't cry, it's my fault." But now, there isn't even anyone left to say I'm sorry. I stood up, walked to the foyer, and looked at the bunch of keys on the shoe cabinet. Suddenly I went crazy and rushed out the door. The streetlights in the community were on, and I ran along the road I used to walk on, shouting promise as I ran. The sound echoed in the quiet night, but there was no response. When I grew tired, I crouched by the roadside and watched the passing cars, and suddenly realized that Promise was really gone. He wouldn't forgive me anymore, no matter what I did wrong. As long as I apologized this time, he really doesn't want me anymore. I crouched by the roadside for a long time, the cold wind seeping into my collar and sobering me up slightly. I knew it was useless to shout here. If Shunyuo really wanted to leave, he wouldn't still be anywhere near the neighborhood. I stood up, my steps unsteady as I headed home, each footfall like stepping on cotton. Back when we used to walk together, Shunyuo would always hold my arm and say, "Jiangshu, slow down, I can't keep up." Now, with the space beside me empty, the road feels endless. I opened the front door, the living room light was still on, making the empty house feel even more desolate. I kicked off my shoes, couldn't be bothered to change into slippers, and went straight to the sofa. Earlier, I had thrown my backup phone here, now its screen was cracked. I picked it up to check for missed calls, but my fingers brushed against something in the gap between the sofa cushions, hard like metal. I reached in and pulled out a silver bracelet. Engraved on the links were small 6 characters and half a heart. It was our 6th anniversary bracelet, one of a pair. I'd lost mine ages ago, but his was still here. I remembered when we bought them. Shunyuo held this one, his eyes shining. "Jiangshu, look, this 6 stands for our 6 years together. And the half heart only becomes whole when you put it together with yours." I had laughed and ruffled his hair, saying, "That's kid stuff," but still told the salesperson to wrap up both later. I wore mine for only a few days before taking it off during a meeting because it got in the way. After that, it disappeared. Shunyuo asked me about it a few times, and I always said it was probably in my office drawer, but I never actually looked for it. Now, looking at his bracelet, I noticed a fine scratch near the clasp from last year, when he accidentally scraped it against the edge of a pot while cooking. He'd felt bad about it for ages, saying he would wear this bracelet until our 7th anniversary. Our 10th. I had been scrolling through work messages on my phone at the time and only mumbled an absent amham. Holding the bracelet, I ran my thumb over those 6 characters again and again, and suddenly, I remembered all the small things I had overlooked. Once, when Shunyuo had a fever of 39 degrees, I was working overtime at the company. He called me, his voice so weak it sounded like it could fade at any moment. Impatiently, I told him to go to the hospital first, and that I'd come after finishing up, but I didn't get home until after midnight. He had already taken his medicine and gone to sleep. On the nightstand was a bowl of kanji he had left for me, long gone cold. The next day, he didn't mention it, only smiled and said, "Good thing the fever broke. Otherwise I'd have to trouble you again." Another time, during a fight, he cried and said, "Jiangshu, can you please spend more time with me?" I thought he was being unreasonable, slammed the door, and went to the study. The next morning he still made me breakfast as usual, packed my briefcase, and even polished my shoes. I didn't apologize, I just took the breakfast and left. Looking back now, how could I not have seen the redness in his eyes? I walked into the bedroom and opened the top drawer of the nightstand. That drawer used to hold our couple's photo album, handmade by Shunyuo, every page filled with pictures and handwritten notes. I flipped through it. The album was still there, but half the photos were gone, all the ones of him alone, or the parts of our couple photos that showed him had been torn out. Only my figure remained, looking strikingly out of place in the album. I turned to the last page and found a folded note in Shunyuo's handwriting. "Jiangshu, 6 years, I've waited for you many times. This time I'm not waiting anymore." The handwriting was neat, not at all hurried, as if he had long known what he wanted to write. My hands began to tremble, tears fell onto the note, blurring the ink. I remembered the early days of our relationship when he wrote in his journal, "I want to be with Jiangshu forever." Back then he showed it to me, his face bright with a smile. Now his journal was gone, leaving only this note, an announcement of the end of our 6-year relationship. I put the bracelet on my wrist. The clasp was a little loose, so it swung back and forth. Shunyuo is thinner than I am, with smaller wrists. This bracelet fit him perfectly, but on me it felt empty and loose. It was like when he was by my side, I took everything for granted. Only after he left did I realize how huge a hole had been left in my heart, one that nothing could ever fill. I walked out to the balcony and looked at the night view outside. In the past, Shunuo used to love standing here looking at the stars saying, Jiang Shu. Look how bright that star is, doesn't it remind you of the one we saw on our first date? Back then I always thought she was being childish, now I look up too, but I can no longer find that brightest star. The bracelet sways on my wrist, the cool metal against my skin, just like the temperature of Shunuo's fingertips when she used to touch my wrist. Suddenly I squat down, hug my knees and cry, not soft sobs but a heart-wrenching cry like a child. I regret it, I truly regret it. I shouldn't have ignored her feelings, shouldn't have taken her devotion for granted, and shouldn't have let her see the public announcement of my relationship with Yanxi after she had waited for me for 6 years. But now it's too late to say anything. She's gone, taking her 6 years, her tenderness, and her hopes with her, completely vanished from my life, leaving me alone with this cold bracelet, remembering all the time I wasted in this empty room. Just as I put the photo album back in the drawer, my phone suddenly rang. The name Yanxi flashed on the screen. I stared at it for a few seconds, my finger hovering over the answer button, hesitating. In the past, I would have answered immediately, but now Shunuo's bracelet is still cool on my wrist, and the note that says no more waiting is still in my pocket. I really don't have the energy to deal with Yanxi. By the 5th ring I pick up anyway, my voice carrying an exhaustion I can't hide. Hey Aishu, are you home yet? Yanxi's voice is cheerful, as if she's still basking in the joy of going public. The post I made on Moments today, so many friends liked it. Some even asked when we're meeting each other's parents, what do you think? I don't have time. I cut her off, my eyes landing on the grey scarf Shunuo left behind on the sofa. A few strands of her long hair are still tangled in the knitted weave, strands she accidentally dropped while knitting it last time. I used to tease her for being clumsy, now I can't even bear to touch those strands of hair. The excitement on the other end of the line vanished instantly. Yanxi's voice carried a hint of grievance. Ashu, what's wrong with you? Are you tired? I thought you'd be happy. We're finally together, didn't you say before? That was before, this is now. I pinched the bridge of my nose, the bracelet on my wrist digging painfully into my skin. The announcement was impulsive, I acted on impulse. Yanxi's voice rose a little. Jiang Shu, what do you mean by that? That's not what you said when you posted it on Moments. You said for the rest of my life. And now you're calling it impulse. I stood up and walked to the balcony, looking down at the small path we used to walk along under the streetlight. A couple was holding hands. The girl had a candied hawthorn stick, and the boy was wiping sugar residue from the corner of her mouth, just like Shunuo and I used to be. Once Shunuo wanted candied hawthorn and I walked 3 streets just to find some. He bit into it, laughing and calling me silly, saying, it's okay if I don't have it, but the light in his eyes was so bright. I'm not in the mood to argue with you. I cut off Yanxi's questioning, my tone turning cold. I need to find Shunuo right now, I don't have time to think about anything else. Shunuo, Yanxi's voice dripped with sarcasm. Why are you looking for him? We've already gone public, and you're still hung up on him. Jiang Shu, have you forgotten that he was the one who came between us back then? If it weren't for him, we would have. Shut up. I clenched my phone tightly, my knuckles turning white. I was the one who pursued Shunuo back then, it had nothing to do with him. Yanxi, going public with you was my mistake. I've wronged him, and I've wronged you, but right now I just want to find Shunuo and apologize to him. There was a few seconds of silence on the other end of the line, followed by Yanxi's sobbing voice. Jiang Shu, how could you do this to me? I've waited for you all these years and you treat me like a joke just for the sake of a promise. Have you forgotten that you said you would wait for me back in college? I haven't forgotten, but that's all in the past. I took a deep breath, softened my tone a little, but there was no trace of compromise left. Yanxi, we're not right for each other, we never were, and we still aren't. As for the public announcement, I'll clarify it on Moments. I won't hold you back. Yanxi cried out. Jiang Shu, how dare you? If you clarify, I'll. Before she could finish, I hung up directly. My finger hesitated over the screen for a moment, then I decisively added her number to the blacklist, just like Shunuo had blacklisted me. This was probably the first time I had been so resolute with Yanxi. I used to think I owed her an apology, but now I realize the person I truly owe an apology to is Shunuo. Just after hanging up, my phone buzzed again. It was a WeChat message from Yanxi. She probably couldn't get through on the phone, so she messaged me instead. I opened the chat. She had sent several messages, some aggrieved accusations, old photos of us together, and one sentence. Did you ever even like me? Looking at those messages, I Suddenly found it a bit ridiculous. I used to think my guilt toward Yenshi meant I hadn't let go, but now I understand, it was just the regret of unspoken words from our youth, long since worn down by Shunyuo's 6 years of tenderness into something utterly inconsequential. I didn't reply. I blocked her on WeChat too, then opened Moments, found that official announcement post and pressed delete. When the confirmation popped up, I breathed a quiet sigh of relief, as if I had just unloaded a burden that was never mine to carry. The bracelet on my wrist swayed slightly. I looked down at the character 46 and suddenly remembered how Shunyuo used to say, "Jiang Shu, the worst thing in a relationship is hesitation. If you like someone, just like them. If you don't, say it sooner rather than later. Don't waste anyone's time." Back then I always thought he was nagging, but now I realize he had already laid out the truth plainly. I was just willfully ignorant, wasting both his time and others. I walked to the entryway and picked up my car keys. Since my friends and auntie wouldn't tell me, I'd find out myself. Shunyuo once mentioned that he spent part of his childhood in the south and loved the rain there. He said he wanted to live in a rainy city someday. I remember he named a specific city, maybe Suzhou, maybe Hangzhou. I can't quite recall, but it doesn't matter. Even if he's gone to the ends of the earth, I will find him and bring him back. Before leaving, I glanced once more at the keys on the shoe cabinet and the grey scarf on the sofa. I folded the scarf carefully and put it in my bag, thinking that when I find Shunyuo, I'll give him this unfinished scarf and tell him I want to stay and finish the remaining stitches together. When the agent handed me the keys, I was standing under a residential building in an old alley in Suzhou. Above me, the plan detailing intertwined with electric wires hung from a Chinese parasol tree. Its leaves lay all over the ground, rustling softly under my feet. "Miss, this place is small but bright and close to the bus stop. The previous tenant lived here for 3 years, and the furniture is still solid." The agent pushed open the unit door, and the aroma of cooking from the next door wafted through the staircase, soy sauce and vegetables. The scent that reminded me so much of my mom busy in the kitchen. I took the keys, my fingertips touched the cool metal, and a sense of steadiness unexpectedly settled in my chest. This was my 3rd day in Suzhou. The first 2 nights I had stayed at a budget hotel near the train station, scrolling rental apps on my phone every day until I found this 40 square meter 1-bedroom, a living room with a small balcony, a bedroom that could fit a 1.5-meter bed, and most importantly, the rent within my means, so I wouldn't have to touch the emergency fund I had saved for 3 years. Opening the door, the room was empty, just an old sofa, a wardrobe with peeling paint, and a small refrigerator in the kitchen. After the agent left, I dragged my suitcase inside. The moment I closed the door, I suddenly felt the whole world go silent. No sound of Jiang Shu's key turning in the lock when he came home, no tapping of his keyboard late at night, and no noise of things being thrown during our occasional fights. I started by tidying up the bedroom, hanging up my clothes one by one in the wardrobe. The wardrobe door was a bit stuck, creaking when pushed. I found a piece of sandpaper and smoothed the bottom edge of the door. Sure enough, the noise faded. Back in that other home, Jiang Shu always fixed things when the wardrobe broke. He used to say, No, don't touch it, you might hurt your hands." Now I can do it just fine on my own. The diary lies under the bottom of the suitcase. I hesitated for a moment, then put it into the drawer of the bedside cabinet. Unlocked. It's not that I'm nostalgic, I just think there's no need to hide it. The days filled with Jiang Shu are already in the past. When I open them again in the future, they may feel unfamiliar. After tidying up my clothes, I went downstairs to the supermarket to buy daily necessities. There are several scents of laundry detergent on the shelves, and I chose the most ordinary lemon scent. In the past, Jiang Shu always favored the lavender scent, claiming it helped with sleep. Now I want to choose what I like. When I was at the checkout, I noticed a strawberry cake in the freezer, and I paused, for Jiang Shu always bought this flavor for my birthday in the past, but this time my birthday cake's candle had gone out and I had left as well. I averted my eyes, picked up a box of milk, turned around, and left the supermarket. Back at the apartment, I started scrubbing the kitchen tiles. Grease had built up in the grout, and it took a long time with a steel wool pad to get them clean. The dish soap foam on my hands felt cool and refreshing. Back in that other home, I used to be the one who cleaned the kitchen. Jiang Shu would occasionally come over to help me wipe down the stove, but he always ended up getting dish soap everywhere. I'd laugh and call him clumsy, and he'd wrap his arms around me from behind, rest his chin on my shoulder and say, "With Nuo here, I don't need to know how to do this." Thinking of that, I paused for a moment then kept scrubbing. Those tender moments were real, but so was the finality of his announcement. I couldn't let the sweetness of the memories make me forget the bitterness that came after. In the evening I changed the bedsheets to new ones, light grey without any pattern. After smoothing them out, I sat on the edge of the bed and looked out the window at the locust trees. In the alley, an elderly woman was pushing a cart selling sweet rice porridge, her slow melodic calls drifting softly through the window. I took out my phone, opened the social media app, and took one last look at Jiang Shu's profile. I could no longer see his moments. He had probably blocked me or maybe deleted that announcement post. I couldn't be bothered to guess. I simply unfollowed him then deleted every contact related to him from my phone, including the phone numbers of his colleagues and the WeChat accounts of his friends that I'd saved before. After finishing all that, I placed my phone on the nightstand, got up, and went to the balcony to hang the laundry. A breeze blew in from the alley, carrying the faint scent of osmanthus. An osmanthus tree had been planted at the corner of the building downstairs, and its tiny golden petals were scattered on the balcony railing. I picked up one petal and held it in my palm, suddenly feeling that this was okay. No Jiang Shu. No 6 years of waiting, no tears from that birthday. From now on, I could cook for myself, fix my own wardrobe, choose my own favorite scent of laundry detergent, and stop waiting for someone who would never come back. I no longer had to put someone else's needs before my own. That night I made a bowl of noodles, added a fried egg, and even though the noodles were a little overcooked, I still ate the entire bowl. Sitting on the old sofa in the living room, I turned on the TV and randomly picked a variety show. The people on screen were laughing happily, and I couldn't help but tug at the corners of my own mouth. The street lamp outside the window lit up, its light streaming in and casting long thin shadows across the floor. I leaned back on the sofa and slowly closed my eyes. For the first time since leaving that home, I felt a sense of peace. Maybe a new life was truly about to begin. I stood at the exit of Suzhou railway station, clutching a crumpled note in my hand, one I had found in Xu Nuo's old diary. She had written 3 years ago, "The rain in Suzhou is so soft, I'd like to raise a cat here someday." I found the diary yesterday in an old box under the bed. She had forgotten to take it when she left. It was filled with records of our daily lives. But this was the only page where she wrote about her own dreams. The damp air at the station exit brushed against my face, cool and refreshing. I pulled my coat tighter. Wrapped around me was the grey scarf, its yarn softened from my constant rubbing. I found a nearby hotel to stay in, dropped off my luggage and headed straight to a rental agency. In my hand, I held a photo of Xu Nuo, taken last year at the botanical garden. She was standing under a cherry blossom tree, laughing with petals in her hair. "Excuse me, could you please tell me if you've seen this young woman renting a place recently? She's in her 20s, about 1.6 meters tall and speaks very softly." I handed over the photo, my voice carrying an urgency I couldn't hide. The intermediary took the photo, looked at it and frowned, thinking for a long time. A bit of an impression. I think 3 days ago there was a roughly similar girl had asked about the old alley house, but whether the rent had been settled I'd need to check the records. He looked down at the computer, his fingers tapping a few keys. "Found the one-bedroom near Panjiang Road that had just signed a contract yesterday." My heart gave a jolt and I hurriedly asked, "Can you tell me the exact address?" "That won't do, the client information can't be disclosed." The intermediary shook his head, handed the photo back to me. "If you know him, go look in that area of the old alley yourself. The houses there are close to each other. You might run into him." I thanked the intermediary, turned and headed toward Panjiang Road. The road in the old alley was very narrow, with whitewashed walls and dark tiles on both sides, red lanterns hanging under the eaves, swaying with the wind. I went door to door looking for house numbers, the photo in my hand crumpled, and every time I spotted a girl in cream-colored clothes I would run up to take a look. But none of them were her. After nearly 2 hours, my shoes were muddy, my throat was dry and sore, but there wasn't even a trace of the promised shadow. Passing a convenience store, I went in to buy water. When I paid, I suddenly overheard the clerk speaking with a customer. "Yesterday, a girl came to buy lemon-scented detergent and asked where there was a place to repair wardrobes. She looked quite quiet." The lemon-scented detergent, Xu Nuo used to say lemon scent meant cleanliness. I used to buy lavender scents and never let him use them. I hurriedly asked the clerk, "Do you remember which direction she went?" "It seems she walked toward the east alley. There's a small repair shop there." The clerk pointed eastward. I started running toward the east, my heart pounding in my chest. The eastern alley had even fewer people, only a few elderly women sitting at the doors picking vegetables. I ran up to them and asked, "Did you see a girl in her 20s yesterday, about this tall, wearing light grey clothes?" I gestured to Shu Nuo's height with my hands. One of the old ladies looked up, thought for a moment and said, "Yes, I saw her. She asked me for directions yesterday afternoon, said she wanted to go to the wardrobe repair shop, and it seems she lives in the building just ahead." The old lady pointed to a 3-story old building not far away. My steps froze as I looked at that building, suddenly afraid to go forward. I was afraid to see her, yet afraid she wouldn't meet me. I was afraid she had forgotten me, yet afraid she was still angry. The bracelet on my wrist swayed, the cold metal pressed against my skin. I drew a deep breath and still stepped forward downstairs. I looked up and saw that the window on the 3rd floor was open, with a light grey bedsheet hanging there, the set I had bought for her online before. She said the pattern was too childish at the time, but she still used it for 2 years. I clutched the scarf in my hand and slowly walked up the stairs, each step feeling like stepping on cotton. On the 3rd floor, I stood at the door, my fingers hovering over the doorknob but unable to knock. I could hear faint sounds coming from inside, like someone packing things up. There was also the noise of a variety show on TV, lively yet making me feel even more alone. I hesitated for a long time, then finally knocked on the door, my voice as soft as if I were afraid of disturbing something. "Nuo Nuo. It's me." The sounds inside suddenly stopped, the variety show went silent, leaving only stillness. I knocked again, louder this time. "Nuo Nuo, I know you're in there, I have something to tell you." Still no response from inside. I leaned against the wall, my throat tightening. No, I was wrong. I shouldn't have gone public, shouldn't have ignored you all these years, and shouldn't have let you suffer. I've blocked Yanxi and deleted the post from my moments. I know I was wrong. Can you please open the door and say something to me? Still no response. I took out the grey scarf from my pocket and placed it at the door, my voice choked with emotion. "This is the scarf you never finished knitting. I brought it with me. I want to finish knitting it with you." No, I've searched for you for a long time, from home all the way to Suzhou. I know I used to be an asshole, but I really can't live without you. I stood at the doorway waiting for a long time until the motion-sensing light in the corridor went out, and then I slowly went downstairs. When I reached the bottom, I looked back at the 3rd floor window, still open. The light grey bedsheet fluttered in the wind, but no one stuck their head out. I didn't leave. Instead, under the plane trees downstairs, I found a spot to sit, holding that photograph in my hand. The promise under the cherry blossom tree smiled so sweetly. How did I lose her? I think I'll wait here, wait for her to be willing to see me, wait for her to listen to my apology, even if I have to wait a lifetime. I'm willing. When I stepped out with my shopping basket and reached the 2nd floor landing, I saw a familiar figure crouching under the wutong tree downstairs. He was wearing a black coat, his hair was a mess, and dark stubble had sprouted on his chin. It was Jiang Shu. I stopped in my tracks and instinctively tightened my grip on the basket's handle, which held the greens and eggs I had just bought to make egg fried rice for lunch. The wind in the alley is a bit strong, blowing the hems of his coat back and forth. Walnut leaves fall onto his shoulders and he doesn't brush them off. Standing like a statue, likely hearing footsteps, he looks up, his gaze meeting mine. In that moment, the weariness and loneliness in his eyes suddenly brighten, as if a dusty lamp suddenly powered on. He stands up, his movements a little stiff, probably because he had crouched for too long and his legs are numb. No. He called my name, his voice hoarse as sandpaper rubbed over wood. "You're finally out." I didn't answer, just looked at him. This was the first time since leaving that home that I had seen him so up close. He had grown thinner, heavy dark circles under his eyes, and the bracelet I had left behind was still on his wrist, the 6 characters on the chain glinting coldly in the sun. He took 2 steps forward, then stopped, as if afraid of startling me. "I waited here all night, afraid you'd leave. Do you want to see me for something?" I finally spoke, my voice calm and unruffled, as if speaking to an ordinary friend. Jiang Shu's gaze dimmed a bit and he pulled out that grey scarf from his pocket and handed it to me. "You haven't finished this. I brought it. I think it's unnecessary." I cut him off, my eyes landing on the scarf. The yarn's color had already faded a bit. It was the light grey I specifically chose last winter, thinking it would make him look fairer when worn, but now it just feels unfamiliar. I stopped when I was halfway through. Keeping it is useless. His hand froze in midair, fingers trembling slightly. Nuo Nuo, I know I was wrong, the official announcement was impulsive, I shouldn't have ignored you all these years or let you suffer. I blocked Yanxi and I deleted you from my moments. Jiang Shu, I looked at him, interrupting his words. None of this matters anymore. He froze as if he hadn't understood. Doesn't matter, how can it not matter? I know I was a jerk before, ignoring your birthday, forgetting our anniversaries, taking your efforts for granted, but I'm changing now. It's not about whether you change or not. I took a deep breath and shifted the grocery basket to my other hand. I just don't need it anymore. For 6 years, I waited for him many times, for him to spend a full birthday with me, for him to say, let's get married, for him to truly care about me, but I never got any of that on my birthday. The moment I saw his post on Moments, I knew there was no need to wait any longer. His lips moved as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out. I continued. I came to Suzhou, found a job, rented an apartment, bought my favorite lemon-scented laundry detergent and fixed the wardrobe myself. I realized that without you, I can still live a good life. The days when I needed you to be there to comfort me, those days are over. But I can't live without you. He suddenly stepped forward to take my hand, but I stepped back to avoid him. His hand froze in midair, and his eyes turned red and bloodshot. Nuo Nuo, I never knew how important you were to me. Only after you left did I realize that the house no longer smells like you. Your blanket is gone from the sofa, and even my mom asks, why didn't Nuo Nuo come home with you? I regret it, I truly regret it. Regret is useless. I looked at him with no hatred or love in my eyes, only a calm emptiness. Feelings aren't something you can grab when you want them and push away when you don't. Over 6 years, my hopes wore away little by little, like paint peeling off a wall. Once it's gone, it can never be restored. He crouched down, covered his head with his hands, and his shoulders trembled slightly. I watched him, feeling no ripples in my heart, not because I was cold-hearted, but because all the pain and tears that should have been spent had already been drained on that birthday night. I still remember our first date. You were waiting for me at the milk tea shop outside the school gate, holding 2 cups of bubble tea, saying, I asked the clerk, you like it with 30% sugar and pearls. His voice broke with sobs. Back then I wanted to be good to you for a lifetime, but later it's all in the past. I interrupted him. Jiang Shu, it's time for you to move on, for me too. I picked up my grocery basket and walked past him toward the entrance of the alley. After a few steps, I stopped and looked back at him. He was still crouching there, his shoulders shaking even more violently, fallen parasol leaves resting on his head and shoulders like a thin layer of snow. That bracelet, I said, my voice as light as the wind, you keep it as a memory of our 6 years. Don't come looking for me again. With that I turned around and never looked back. The scent of Osmanthus flowers drifted through the alley, mingling with the warm, smoky aroma of cooking from the neighboring houses. It was very comforting. I knew that from this moment on, the story between Jiang Shu and me was truly over. No dramatic entanglements, no heartbreaking farewells, only a quiet letting go. Some people are only meant to walk a part of your journey with you, no matter how long that part may be. Even 6 years, when it's time to part, you still have to say goodbye with a smile. I walked into the convenience store at the corner of the alley and bought a box of strawberry cake, not to commemorate anything, just because I suddenly felt like eating it. After paying, I took a bite. It was sweet, better than any of the ones Jiang Shu had bought before. Sunlight streamed through the store's glass window and fell on my hand, warm and soft. I knew then my new life had only just begun. The end.